The University of Washington is the last Pac-12 team to have made the college football playoffs. They have multiple national titles as a program, and the Seattle area is considered to be a recruiting hotbed when it comes to talent. Yet, in recent years, the Huskies have been down. But could they turn it all around and return to being a Pac-12 powerhouse? Let's talk about that. The Washington Huskies football program began in 1889 and in its first 2 decades saw 11 different head coaches. The attendance for games quickly grew in popularity from a few hundred fans each game to a few thousand at Denny Field. Gil Dobby would be the Huskies' first stable coach, staying with the program from 1908 to 1916. He ran a dominant program that went 58-0-3 during his tenure and outscored opponents 1,930 to 118 during that time frame. Majority of Washington's longest NCAA unbeaten streak of 64 games occurred under Dobby at the helm. In 1915, the Huskies, Oregon State, and California formed the Pacific Coast Conference. Washington won the first conference championship in 1916, and at the end of the season saw their future College Football Hall of Fame coach retire. The coaches that followed Dobby's tenure failed to live up to the same expectations, with Claude J. Hunt going 6-3-1, but won a conference title in his second tenure as coach in 1919. Tony Savage went 1-1 in 1918, while Stub Allison went 1-5 in 1920. They also began playing in Husky Stadium in 1920 and changed their names from the Sun Dodgers to the Huskies in 1922. Anak Bagshaw took over as head coach in 1921, having graduated from Washington in 1907, becoming the school's first 5-year letterman in football history. He had led Everett High School to multiple national championships and continued that success as the Huskies head coach, putting together a 63-22-6 record, taking Washington to their first 2 Rose Bowls in 1924 and 1926. He also led them to their 3rd PCC conference title in 1925. After a losing season in 1929, Bagshaw stepped down as head coach and James Phelan took over as coach. Over a 12-year time period, he guided the Huskies to a 65-37-8 record, winning the program's 4th PCC championship and 3rd Rose Bowl appearance. From 1942 to 1956, Washington struggled to find sustainable success. They went to their 4th Rose Bowl in 1944, but that was really the only notable positive thing that occurred during that time period. In 1955, head coach John Cherberg was let go after a payoff scandal occurred, and Darrell K. Royal was head coach in 1956 before leaving for Texas, where he went on to win 3 national championships. Jim Owens would take over as head coach in 1957 after serving as an assistant under Bear Bryant at Kentucky and Texas A&M. In 1959, the PCC was disbanded due to major crisis and scandal. The scandal linked back to the payments under Cherberg and the slush fund associated with it. The PCC found evidence of prohibited activities of the Greater Washington Advertising Fund run by Roscoe C. Torchy Torrance, and in May imposed sanctions. Torrance wrote in his book, "It's a fact of life that a kid can't be a college athlete and make it through school without outside help if he's in need of any assistance at all. That's why there has been a fund like ours at almost every university." Back in April of 2022, Christian Capel from The Athletic wrote, "Stories have trickled out in the years since. Washington wanted star running back Hugh McElhenny, so what did Torrance do? Got him a job, got his wife a job, got him a place to stay, and handed him a crisp dollar bill in the locker room in exchange for touchdowns." Don Heinrich, another Washington star and College Football Hall of Famer, joked at Torrance's funeral in 1990 that Torrance slipped him $1 or $2 and that McElhenny would prod him about asking Torrance for a raise. Then more problems were found at UCLA, and the school actually tried to block the investigation. The Bruins would then blow the whistle on USC's illegal payments as well. The conference would fall apart after this, and California, Washington, Stanford, USC, and UCLA would create the Athletic Association of Western Universities. Washington State, Oregon, and Oregon State would join in the early 60s. Owens led Washington to 3 AAWU championships and Rose Bowl berths in 1959, 1960, and 1963, where they would beat Wisconsin and Minnesota but lose to Illinois. In 1960, the Helms Athletic Foundation named the Huskies a national championship as well. Owens finished as the 3rd winningest Pac-8 head coach of all time and resigned as head coach in 1974. He had also served as athletic director from 1960 to 1969. Don James followed Owens as head coach in 1975 and would lead Washington to some of their most successful seasons in football program history. James rendered it an annual expectation in the 25-year period from 1977 through 2001, encompassing nearly all of the James 18-year tenure, plus Jim Lambright and early Rick Neuheisel years. The Huskies finished ranked in the AP Top 25 poll 15 times, tied for 9th best nationally in that span. During that period, Washington ranked 8th in the FBS in winning percentage at .721, behind only Nebraska, Florida State, Miami, Michigan, Penn State, BYU, and Ohio State. The Huskies went to 7 Rose Bowls, winning 5, and also won a share of the 1991 national title, plus an Orange Bowl victory and a narrow number 2 national finish in 1984. The James era was not without its scandals, though, as it was revealed in 1992 that several players received improper benefits from boosters, which led to sanctions by the Pac-10. Although James was not personally involved in the scandals, he decided to resign as head coach to lessen the sanctions placed on the Huskies. Lambright was fired after a 6-6 record, although he had an overall record of 44-25-1. Neuheisel was reprimanded by the NCAA for numerous recruiting violations and was fired in 2003 after he admittedly took part in a Calcutta pool for the 2003 men's NCAA basketball tournament. In the 20 years since, they finished ranked only 4 times and ranked 71st in FBS in winning percentage during that span, at just a shade under 500. Oregon and USC each are in the top 10 for the same period. One FBS athletic director told The Athletic, "The perception among the Pac-12 and everybody else is this is one of 2 or 3 premier jobs in the conference. I can't say I ever saw that. I saw a good team. I didn't see a premier team, and I'm not sure they fulfilled the potential that existed there. At least in my mind, they should be as dominant or more dominant than anybody else in the conference. Save USC, because they've got it all." Keith Gilbertson struggled as head coach, going 7-16, including a 1-10 season in 2004, which led to Tyrone Willingham being hired. Willingham was a former Stanford and Notre Dame head coach and was responsible for cleaning the program's off-the-field reputation up. His best record would come in 2006, when the Huskies went 5-7, and he was fired after an 0-12 record in 2008, finishing with an 11-37 overall record. After coaching hire miss after coaching hire miss, Washington finally got it right when they hired USC offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian in 2009. Sark, known as an offensive mind and quarterback coach, led the Huskies to a 34-29 record over 5 seasons, never winning more than 8 games in a year but recording just 1 losing season. He helped rebuild a struggling program, but joined Darrell Royal as the only coach to voluntarily leave Washington when he took the head coaching job at USC. The Huskies were once again looking for a new ball coach, and they turned to Boise State head coach Chris Petersen. Petersen had led the Broncos to 7 straight double-digit winning seasons before the streak was broken in 2013 when they went 8-4. He had built on the foundation left by Dan Hawkins and raised Boise State football's profile to national status, putting together a 92-12 record with 5 conference titles and 5 bowl wins, including 2 Fiesta Bowl wins. Petersen helped Washington continue their upward trajectory, going 8-6 and 7-6 his first 2 seasons, would have his breakout season in 2016 when he led the Huskies to a 12-2 record, a conference title, and a berth in the college football playoffs. The last time a Pac-12 team achieved that feat. 32 wins, a college football playoff bid, 2 conference championships, and 3 consecutive New Year's 6 appearances from 2016 through 2018 put the Huskies back on the national radar, and it raised Washington's recruiting profile too. Petersen's best teams were loaded with overlooked prospects, but he also signed more blue-chip recruits rated 4 or 5 stars than not during his final 3 classes. One experienced Pac-12 recruiting staffer told The Athletic, "When Pete was there, it was like, alright, they're going to get some big dudes, they're going to be tough on the trail, they're going to be doing everything the right way, consistently on every single top guy in the West. As soon as you saw him leave, that kind of aura just left. You feel better going up against Washington now. Ever since Pete left. I could say that confidently." At the end of the 2019 football season, Petersen announced he was going to be stepping down as head coach and taking a leadership advisory role within the athletic department. He led the Huskies to his last win in the Las Vegas Bowl, poetically against Boise State. Petersen finished his Washington coaching career with a 55-26 record, and the Huskies turned to defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake. During a shortened 2020 season, the Huskies went 3-1 and won the Pac-12 North, but were unable to play in the conference championship game due to numerous COVID-19 related absences. During the 2021 season, Lake was suspended without pay for shoving a Washington player during a loss to Oregon, Lake was later fired, finishing his tenure with a 7-6 record. Lake's recruiting classes suggested a regression. The Huskies signed a 17-player class under Lake in 2021 that ranked 30th nationally in the 24/7 Sports Composite. In their 2022 class, which included only 8 high school signees, plus 7 transfers of varying experience, ranked 11th in the conference. That's after signing classes in 2018, 2019, and 2020, Peterson's final 3 cycles, that each ranked inside the top 16 nationally. During that span, Washington signed 66 prospects, 36 of whom were blue-chip recruits. Of the 26 prospects signed in the 2 classes since, only 6 were blue-chippers. 24/7 Sports' Cooper Pegna says realistic expectations for recruiting at Washington likely fall below what Peterson accomplished towards the end of his tenure. You would know as well as anyone. Not only did he work for Peterson as Director of Player Personnel from 2018 to 2019, but he spent 1 season as Director of Recruiting under Mario Cristobal at Oregon after that, and he has previous experience on recruiting staffs at Alabama, LSU, Cincinnati, and Michigan. He told The Athletic, "I think at the highest clip, I've always believed this. If Washington was over-exceeding expectations, it would be 12 to 15 nationally. If they were overachieving slightly, it would be in the range Chris Peterson was floating around in from 16 to 20. I think that 20 to 25 range is where you want to be if you're Washington." The program seemed to be in a bad place at the end of the 2021 season, but the hiring of Kalen DeBoer changed everything. In a few short months, he was able to re-energize not just the football program, but the whole athletic department. Led by DeBoer and Indiana transfer Michael Penix Jr., Washington quickly turned things around, finishing this past season with an 11-2 record and a win in the Alamo Bowl. They almost earned a spot in the Pac-12 title game, but fell short due to their losses to UCLA and Arizona State, both on the road. The Huskies finished ranked 8th in the final AP poll, and will see Penix and multiple key players return next season. Expectations are extremely high for Washington, but they play a brutal schedule. They open the season up against Boise State, followed by Tulsa before traveling to East Lansing to play Michigan State. They host Oregon, Utah, and Washington State at home, but will have to travel to USC and Oregon State on the road. 10 wins is a realistic number with what they return and how their schedule looks, but things can change very quickly in the game of football. If things do not go the Huskies' way this year, fans need to remember this is only year 2 under DeBoer, but I would also not be surprised if they're in the playoff conversation come the end of the season. NIL is here to stay in college football, and if Washington wants to compete for national titles, they will need to take advantage of it. Washington always has stood among the small group of West Coast programs whose tradition, support, and spending power put it within shouting distance of national relevance, if in spurts. They have Mountain Lake Futures, which exists to facilitate NIL opportunities for Washington athletes, but the foundation does not believe in handing out million-dollar contracts to secure recruits. Emmy Armentrout, the executive director and general manager of Mountain Lake Futures, told The Athletic, "We're not going to do stuff like that, and we're not going to compete with that. That's never really been our lane anyway, even pre-NIL. I want to create something that's sustainable and that builds on Washington's strategic position in the college marketplace already." Athletic Director Jen Cohen said a lot of Washington football players and other athletes have some manner of NIL deals from a variety of sources, not just via Mountain Lake Futures, and I think the school is just scratching the surface with regards to what it might accomplish through NIL. There seems to be hesitation from the alumni base, with Armentrout saying, "I think the Washington alumni base, I've spoken with a lot of them, who feel a little queasy about NIL, but they obviously want us to be competitive and make good stuff happen. So if I'm able to demonstrate NIL opportunities that make them feel like, okay, this feels good to me, that increases our likelihood of being able to fundraise down the line." Washington wants to build their brand up to bring in recruits not guaranteeing million-dollar contracts straight out of high school. If you listen to analysts like 24/7 Sports' Josh Pate, that looks to be where NIL goes in the future. Companies reach out to the schools for brand deals because of the name on the front of the jersey, not on the back. What looks to be a more sustainable setup. DeBoer wants to show recruits the opportunities that can be had at Washington and in the Seattle area. Part of Washington's recruiting pitch has long been the number of high-profile companies based in Seattle, and the Mountain Lake Futures launched with several listed as founding partners: Amazon, Alaskan Airlines, Costco, Nordstrom's, and Precept Wines. Washington's resources, location, and history provide few excuses for non-contention. In a pre-pandemic world, the athletic department could count on an annual revenue north of $130 million when football attendance was healthy, and there has been years in which Washington has made and spent more money than any other public Pac-12 school. The pandemic wreaked havoc on Washington's budget and forced many difficult cost-cutting decisions, mostly with regard to department staffing. The football season ticket base is still recovering from a 2020 season played with no fans, followed by a 2021 season that fell miles short of expectation. With the resources Washington has, they should consistently compete for Pac-12 titles and have top 25 recruiting classes every year. The Huskies finished with the 30th ranked recruiting class for the 2023 cycle and will look to build on that going forward. Another important piece of information during the Peterson era, he was one of the top paid public school coaches in the Pac-12, and his assistant pay ranked towards the top as well. Washington has all the tools to be a special program out west, and DeBoer has seemingly done a good job placing the groundwork around the program. But will it be enough? Only time will tell. What do you think? Is Washington a sleeping giant out west? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos right here. Don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe for more college football content. Thank you so much for watching. I could not be more thankful for y'all. You guys make this all possible for me, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.